Tell us then,
Well,
how proud in some ways could you be of that performance, considering that red card that left?
I thought they did really well.
Yeah.
I was looking at actually Saka and Martinelli. The Martinelli last night was absolutely magnificent. No one seemed to pick that up. I know the defenders did really well. But Xhaka, I just don't understand what was in his mind. We almost now could do with an explanation from the player. That's the second time this season he's been sent off and left the team sort of exposed. Last time at City, 2 yellow cards, and he was sent off, and they've got absolutely hammered there at City. So they did brilliantly well last night. Quick change from the manager, changed the system. And the lads coming on, I thought Holding Chambers did exceptionally well, and they just saw it through. And strange watching the Liverpool team. We know with Salah and Mane, they just looked, that lack of belief without those two around. They didn't seem to play with that same purpose, that ruefulness that they needed. But it's only half time in the tie. And strangely now, I feel the pressure's now on Arsenal in this second leg. And, who's going to play in centre midfield? Maitland-Niles has been allowed to leave. Partey and El Neni are away on the African nations, and now Xhaka's got sent off. So that leaves one midfield player, Lokonga. So it's going to be tough for Arsenal. But last night was impressive, but nonetheless, it was a stupid thing for the captain Xhaka to do last night.
So there's no doubt it's a red card for you.
There's absolutely. There wasn't a case to be answered to, really. I mean, he's thinking that he's trying to make out the case that he, okay, I've got my eyes fixed on the ball, but no, he was looking around. He was looking around, assessing. What I would say is, I think actually, if I was playing in the team and I was Gabriel, I wouldn't have gone ahead of him. I'd sit back and be the last man. I don't think you can leave him in a 1v1 situation. We've seen this before. But nonetheless, he didn't need to make that challenge. I didn't think Ramsdale could really help him in that situation.
There were suggestions he could have come out.
Yeah, I don't think he could have done, to be honest. I think it was Xhaka's fault.
This is not the first time, as Martin has just pointed out, Simon. It's the second red card of the season. He's had a number of red cards in his Arsenal career as well. At what point does a player become a liability?
At the point the manager determines that he is. Look, the bottom line is that you just focus on the fact that Arsenal had the resolution and the courage of the convictions to come out of that game. Xhaka had put them in a box in a difficult position. But the team itself, I wonder, 4 or 5 months ago, when obituaries were being written and an obituary of Mikel Arteta's career, Arsenal manager was being written if he didn't beat teams like Norwich when they came back from a break, if Arsenal would have had the fortitude to have had the ability to withstand Liverpool. Now, I think you have to also factor in the fact that Liverpool weren't at their irresistible best. So Arsenal did have a slightly blunted Liverpool, but notwithstanding that, they still had to compete for 50, 60 minutes of a game, 60-odd minutes of a game against Liverpool at Anfield in a cup semi-final, and they had the resilience and character and the wherewithal to come away with a very commendable 0-0 draw. And you have to say, in the building blocks of the journey that Arteta's on, these are the things that leadership and character is built from. When you have moments like this, where the job now, once your captain has ridiculously put you in a situation, is to overcome the situation and find a way to get an outcome. And that's what Arsenal did. And you look at Arsenal and say, well, we can focus on Xhaka. I mean, he is a player that reacts in a certain way. The manager knows that. And there has to come a point where the penny drops with this fella that certainly in a position of influence that he's supposed to have in the team, there are things you do and don't do. The balance is, as Martin will be able to speak to far more eloquently than me, is if you take away one side of a player, you might diminish another side. By trying to manage a problem with him, you might diminish another aspect of his game, but you'd like to think there's a maturity in his thinking to be able to get the balance right between doing certain things at certain times and not doing them. But I'm more interested in looking at Arsenal as a project and saying there's a lot more beginning to become right about Arsenal than there is wrong. What say you, Martin?
Well, I'm looking at, people are talking about ill discipline. Last weekend, Jim was big on that, wasn't he? Saying to me about how Vieira was a disgrace, the way that he got sent off a number of times. But I'd take that any day in terms of the all-round package that player had. Now, I'm not sure Xhaka is in that sort of privileged position.
No, of course not.
The thing is, I think if I was one of the players, I wouldn't even have been able to look at him last night after that game because of what he then put his colleagues through. And it's happening again and again. It was embarrassing when it happened at the Etihad. They were so bad in that performance, but he played a major part in that. So the manager clearly wants him. He puts him straight back in the team. He got suspended early in the season. He came back. He got injured. He went straight back in. That wasn't happening for Tierney. It wasn't happening for other players that you consider to be number one. So he's a manager that loves him. But I feel if Arsenal are going to be successful going forward, then Xhaka is not of the quality that Arsenal really need going forward. But they do need him at the moment. So, what he has to do is clean up his act. Because now he's costing Arsenal at vital times.
Do you not think the galvanisation of that team will almost embarrass someone into looking at themselves more succinctly? Because he will have seen, like you say, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but he will see that his teammates had to do something they shouldn't have had to do. But they did it, and they did it without him, so he isn't as prevalent as he may think he is. Is that not necessarily a good mind concentrator where A, he might get sent to Coventry in the dressing room by the players because they're not particularly happy with him? He may not. And B, he can see that this team can actually cope pretty well without him.
But we have to ask the player. And it'd be interesting to hear what he has to say. Of course he's going to be hurting. He's a human being.
What did the manager say after the game?
I didn't hear the comments from the manager, but I just feel that the player, okay, I don't want to just like hang him out to dry, but it's like, okay, we need him, but how do we improve him? But he must be on the last chance saloon here. And I've said this before.
Sure.
Already.
You make an argument for Vieira because of the quality of player that Vieira was, but there was a quality of you lot around him as well. And with respect, the quality of Arsenal is nowhere near the quality of the team.
It's improving.
So, granted, but what we're saying is if you compare apples and apples, Xhaka may be a poor man's imitation of Vieira, not in athleticism and not in ability, but in the team that he has the influence in. But Arsenal are a poor imitation today of the side that you played in, so it's all horses for courses,
We went to Anfield back in the day. I was just talking to Ray Parlour as he left. Gio Van Bronckhorst was sent off after half an hour. And we kind of looked around, and I remember players saying it out loud, we don't need him. We can do it with 10 men. We went 2-0 up in the game at Anfield, won the match. It doesn't happen often. I'll tell you, wherever era you played in, it was difficult at Anfield. But that team really galvanised last night. The message came from the manager. They changed quickly, went to a back five. So that's a start. This is Arsenal about building a reputation, rebuilding reputation, character, personality.